What's up, YouTube and Facebook, and welcome back to the final episode of Let's Talk Comics with Ross Richie. I'm Tom, and this is Not Quite Min. So don't forget, guys, subscribe to the channel, hit that dingly bell so you don't miss any of our content, give us a thumbs up, comment below. Let's get into it.
So, you know, earlier on you mentioned you got a comic collection. And I know as a comic collector, you probably have that thing where you're constantly chasing a grail, and you might get that grail, but then you never get the grail. You know what I'm saying? So, do you have an actual all-time grail?
I don't. I've always been, one of my problems is that I'm interested in everything.
Okay.
And so, all right, so Tom's on my side. Okay, so for the rest of the conversation, Rich, it's going to be Tom and me versus you. Okay.
Well, weirdly, there's if you knew my collecting habits, and Tom does, and I've got to have an offshoot YouTube channel of my own because of my habits. So I'm not too far behind you, I don't think. But carry on.
So I would go through these time periods when, I would get interested in the early independents. And so I would go collect all the Star Reach comics. And so I just go buy all the Star Reach comics, and then I would go collect Eclipse, and I collect everything that Eclipse published, and then I collect everything that Pacific published, and then I collect everything that Kamiko published. So I would just go through these different phases where I would get really interested in different aspects of the hobby. And, I never quite figured out, I had the classic thing of all the classic superheroes. But to a certain degree, there was a way in which, because of my age and when I got into it, that a lot of the stories became repetitive for many of the most famous heroes. And, this is in the 70s and the early 80s. And so, when Batman was super exciting, I was usually there picking up, I remember pre-ordering Return of the Dark Knight, and I remember buying the first issue of Watchmen. That Alan Moore had been somebody that I had been tracking. I was a big reader of D.R. and Quench from 2000 AD. And so I was following him along and was pre-ordering Miracle Man and weigh in on Swamp Thing early on. So all that stuff I saw coming. And so through the years, I'm so sort of all over the place with what I'm interested in. And I've never been the guy that's like, I'm going to have every Captain America comic. So, I'm more like, I really get in love with Mike Zeck, and so I need every Mike Zeck Captain America comic.
Okay.
And then I might trade those in to go get some other thing, and I'm always like laddering my way up through the process. And so, probably at the end of this road is, how do I get a Detective 27 or an Action Comics #1? I have a joke with my editor-in-chief, which is that, what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to kind of reduce down. And so I'm kind of consolidating things. And so, it's like, right now I'm getting out of my 1970s Batman collection.
Okay.
And so I just kind of look at it and I go, you got the Neil Adams stuff in the late 60s and the early 70s, but there's a big swath of like 1973 to 1979, maybe 1980, where it's like,
Yeah.
I don't really need these, you know? And so, you know, my joke with my editor-in-chief is like, it's like, I can't bring in more than goes out. And so I'm going to eventually just funnel it all down. And I hope that I'm standing there with like, you know, a bunch of Amazing Fantasy 15s that I need to like trade in for a Detective 27.
Yeah, that's cool. So that's such a good way. I like that process of like funneling towards that Tech 27. That would be obviously amazing, especially after that one sold the other week for what was it? Was it 1.5 million or something stupid?
That's
or was
crazy.
it 3?
Yeah, so you know that's probably the impossible, you know. And as soon as I could, you know, I don't think I'll ever be able to afford 1.5 million, but you know, and that's probably better spent on a ridiculous mansion that I could live in. But, you know, it's. I mean, let's not be crazy, but it's a good mirage to chase. And, you know, and I'll say that. And then as soon as the pandemic's lifted and everybody's got the vaccine, I'll go to a convention and walk out with like the dollar boxes, you know. I could completely see the Shang-Chi movie coming out and me falling back in love with Master of Kung Fu and, you know, all that Paul Gulacy stuff. And Mike Zeck started on Master of Kung Fu. So I could probably rebuy all that. So don't trust me. I'll get interested in something shiny and I'll wander off, you know. So
I'm exactly the same. I will buy say like an issue, for instance, like an issue 1 of we only find them when they're dead, and then they'll bring out a second. You'll bring out a second print or a third print, and then I'm like, oh well, I've got to have that because it's got a shiny cover on it. Then I just end up with all these extra comics I don't necessarily need, but I like them. They're you know, I like having them.
Well, buy what you like and have fun. That's important. And let's just agree that we're probably not going to become millionaires. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, your passion, Tom's passion for collecting is Transformers comics, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got thousands of boxes of Transformer comics. I actually, you know, lucky enough to call some of the artists and writers friends.
Oh, so great!
I've actually got a lot of my collection signed and stuff. And Simon Furman is actually a really good friend of mine, which is amazing. So they kind of have a sentimental value as well as.
Okay, so as somebody that I was a little too old for Transformers when it came out, and so I was not in the right age category. And so I certainly admire it as a phenomenon, and I have some theories about it. But I'll ask you what I asked Kieran Gillen, which is, what do you think it is about Simon's work that has made him the definitive Transformers writer?
Oh, do you know what? I kind of think the reason that Simon is so good as a Transformer writer is because he kind of writes the characters as a human. Like you kind of fall in love with them as if they were human characters that you could relate to, rather because for me, when I read a comic, I'm kind of reading about like Power Rangers. They're already human, so I already relate to them. So when you read a Transformer comic, they're this machine that you can't relate to, but you do relate to them because of the way they've been written by Simon, as if they are human. And actually, it's the human race within those books that's the problem. That are like they're the more like machine type characters. So that's why I like Simon's work.
And why do you like the Transformers specifically?
Well, that's down to my grandfather. He collected Transformers when I was a kid, and I was never allowed anywhere near them because they were behind glass cabinets in a padlocked room. So I always wanted one, and then my mum ended up buying me a Transformer comic, and it all just kind of escalated from there. So I related to my grandfather, if you like.
Wow, your grandfather was a toy collector?
Oh, yes.
Wow, that's really unusual.
My grandfather was a collector. Basically, I don't know if you would have seen it in America, but there's a show called Steptoe and Son where it's, you know, they collect junk, lots of junk, and it's like a hoarder's paradise. My grandfather was that. Anything and everything he would collect. He had Western, cowboy hats, guns, bits and bobs, loads of toys, Eddie Stobart cars. He had baseball cards like Rich collects. He had comic books, which I've never seen actually, unfortunately, because when he passed away, everything kind of got shipped out and stuff. But so I've not seen half the stuff that was there. But all his Transformers I ended up with, so I'm quite pleased with that.
Sounds like it worked out.
Yeah, definitely. It was awesome. But that's why I love Transformers, because he kind of gave me that, and then I've kind of run with it as a thing.
I love it. I love it. We all find our fandom in different ways. I wanted to be a pile of rocks, and you wanted Transformers toys.
Yeah. I basically wanted to be Optimus Prime, or wanted Optimus Prime to be my dad.
Yeah, there you go.
Didn't you say that you used to tell me the story as well, that your dad used to always do Optimus Prime's voice, or he tried to, but he'd do it really bad? Yeah,
so my dad used to have these little Ladybird books, because I didn't have the comics at the time, so I had the little Ladybird books. So my dad would read them to me at night, and he'd put on the voices, and he was okay at Megatron, but when he got to Optimus Prime, because Peter Cullen was my Optimus Prime from the TV show, I didn't think anyone else could do it. So when my dad was doing it, I kept saying to him, "You're not doing it right. Give it here. Let me read it myself. Stop doing the voices." I was actually
You'll be entertained. My 6-year-old and 8-year-old daughters correct me about the Power Rangers.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Ross, as we were just saying about the Transformers thing, my question to you is, if you could have any character or any franchise come under the Boom umbrella, what kind of franchise or character would you pick, and what would your creative team look like?
Wow, I think you're going to be really disappointed with my answer.
Okay.
You know, what's motivating to me with Boom is I believe that great stories can be told with anything. And I believe the medium can do anything. You know, the medium can tell compelling stories about cooking. Or it can tell it, you know, like I hear that there's fishing manga. And that's like something I would love to try, is like how you tell a fishing story in an emotionally, you know, compelling way. And so I don't really think about franchises like that. You know, the things that I had really, the stuff that I loved when I was young is the Fantastic Four. It was a science fiction adventure story. And the X-Men, I think, was a science fiction adventure story even more than it was a superhero story.
I'd agree with that.
Both of those sets of characters didn't have secret identities. And when I was a kid and I would read Superman, Lois Lane was always trying to prove that Clark Kent was Superman. And I didn't like it. And I didn't like it for 2 reasons. One is, if she really thought he was Superman, why is she trying to expose him? It seemed mean to me. Because he's keeping it a secret for a reason, which she could probably figure out, right? And then the flip side was, from Clark's perspective, he was in love with her. Why didn't he share his secret? And Peter Parker had a lot of the same problems. I mean, you know, like I'd be in conversations with Paul Levitz and I'd say, you know, Clark Kent is lying to Lois Lane. So when I would read those stories when I was 7 or 8, it would really bother me. So, you know, Peter Parker was always in a situation where he was a day late and a buck short and in jeopardy. And I found the superhero idiomatically was very hard for me to access emotionally. And so I was attracted to the X-Men and Fantastic Four. And that led to, you know, I loved Star Wars, and then the Micronauts came out, and ROM, and there was all these science fiction comics of the late 70s, the early 80s. They're the precursors to the Transformers. Like I'm like 5 years reading older than you.
Yeah.
And so I loved all those things that had big science fiction concepts like Star Wars that were not burdened by secret identity changes.
Yeah.
And then what's that?
I said, yeah, like in those sort of stories, things are more open, and there's not like that tension, is there, between like logic almost.
Yeah, and as I got older, what I saw was that's a soap opera, and I mean that as a story format. I don't mean that as derisive term, negative term.
Yeah,
that soap opera storytelling is part of what makes those franchises so successful. And the interpersonal relationships and the way the dynamics change, and will they or won't they, and what's going to happen next, is really one of the reasons that keeps the readership reading. But it just didn't land with me.
Yeah.
But as I got older, then I got into the independents, because science fiction could be told by Pacific and Kimiko and Eclipse and all these publishers unfettered by any superhero universes. And so if you're telling a story in a superhero universe, you have to worry about continuity. But Kimiko could do a science fiction story that could stand on its own and didn't have anything to do with anybody else's. And so I was always interested in what the possibilities were. And then when I discovered something like a particular company, I would go try to collect everything they did so that I understood how the company kind of saw creative. And then I would go get interested in a writer or a specific artist, follow their careers. And so I'm bad because, I'm not sure, like the Power Rangers publishing was fascinating to me because it was brought to us internally by folks led by Bryce Carlson, which is more of that generation on it as an age group. And the idea was, show is very clearly a whimsical kids show. When you watch as an adult, right?
Yeah.
But what if we told stories that were like you thought they were when you were a kid? Right? So when you were 6, you thought this was serious as cancer, right? You thought the Power Rangers were like, you didn't see the cheesy costumes, and you didn't see, and so what we draw it like that, where we draw, it's like how you see what they've done with Godzilla. When I was a kid, it was a bunch of guys in green outfit jumping around, and you go see a Godzilla movie now, and they take it serious as cancer, and they're telling this legit epic, amazing Godzilla story. And so that's what we wanted to do with Power Rangers, which I thought was like a terrific approach, and it's paid off in spades. It's been enormous. But I'm always kind of interested in what things can do. And so like you'll notice in my series of questions to you, Tom, about when I'm asking questions about Simon Furman and the Transformers, I'm sort of interested in what it can do and what makes it different and remarkable, more than necessarily the specifics of Optimus Prime's backstory, or who all the different lists of every character that's ever been a Transformer. Like the index lists and character histories and things like that are not nearly as interesting to me as so part of what's fun with Boom for me is I have this pirate ship. It's mine, and I can go where I want, and I get to do what I want. And tomorrow can bring me something, I can honestly tell you, I never thought I'd be the publisher of the Power Rangers. And
I think it's
so,
cool.
Thank you. And so tomorrow will bring me something that I don't expect, and I have no idea, and it'll be fun, and it'll be the journey of a lifetime, and I'll be happy and grateful and thankful for it.
I feel like I need to, when we did edit the videos, is edit a little pirate hat.
Yeah, bring it on. Give me a hook.
I mean, Power Rangers is just insane. I mean, I didn't actually read the first kind of arc of Power Rangers. I picked up the Power Rangers Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle crossover at the start of the year, and I absolutely loved it. And because it felt like I was rewatching my childhood but reading it, I was like, I've got to go back and reread the Power Rangers, and I did. I've done the whole lot, and I loved it from start to finish. And I think what is now going on is incredible as well. And Dan Moore as an artist is insane.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's absolutely incredible. All right, Rich, that means you've got a question, right?
I believe I have. So it kind of does tie in nicely to that. So my kind of, because we're talking about like the future and everything. So with obviously you're there, you're the pirate on your ship, and
I love that.
This wasn't part of the original question, by the way. So when you're there, stood looking out at the landscape of like comics and how things are going, obviously off the back of a pandemic, where do you see the future of comics going? What do you think?
Well, I think comic shops are always going to be around, because what comic shops are is, I can't talk to my wife about anything nerdy. I don't care. Right? Now, irony of ironies, my wife is a writer and she's written science fiction and horror, but she doesn't want to sit around on the couch and talk to me about who's stronger, Superman or the Hulk. Now, most people don't have a writer wife, but they do have a wife that doesn't want to talk to them about whatever the hell it is that is their obsession. And most people at work don't have anybody that wants to talk about any of that. And there's work to be done. And so, we've seen this explosion in media, and I don't think it'll get any smaller. And, The Witcher and The Boys and there's just going to be more. And where do you go to talk about it? There's obviously online interaction, which we're doing. Yeah. But, you walk into a comic shop and there's people there and they can turn you on to new things, and it's a personal experience. We don't have pubs in North America. No. So this is a pub for us. So, the third place, right? And so comic shops aren't going away. I will tell you that the book market and its readership is powerful. We sell a tremendous amount of graphic novels in the book market, and that's only going to get bigger. One of the big New York book publishing houses is publishing a series of kids' graphic novels, which are designed to be some of the first things that a kid can read, so that you don't have to teach a kid to read a comic, right? Because there's some people have a hard time. They come to it when they're 10 or 20 or 30, and they can't figure out how to read a comic. And this New York book publishing house has an entire line devoted to teaching people to read comics at the earliest age. And I don't need to tell you how many million copies are being sold of Dogman and Raina Telgemeier's work. And so that's just going to get bigger. Web comics are huge. They're going to get bigger. Everything's going to get bigger. Everything's going to be more. And it's just going to get better. The pandemic's hit, comic sales are up. Yeah. We're going to come out of this, comic sales are going to be up. And all the doom and gloom stuff, I see all this chatter online. It's like people are programmed somehow. I don't understand where they got it from. Where, there's on my Instagram, I've had a bunch of people show up and be like, well, comic sales are down. I was like, where? I don't. And then they argue with me. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand. Like, I've been doing this for 15 years. I've won Best Publisher 9 times, and you're going to argue with me about comic sales down?
I love that.
You think I got drunk last night? I woke up in a pile of my own vomit. I'm terrified of the future, and I'm going to go onto Instagram and argue with you because I'm going to pretend the comic sales are up? I mean, what are we doing?
Oh, dear. Yeah. No, I really like that. That's such an optimistic outlook, and I know I watched your video talking about obviously, how does an artist get into the business, and that idea of you have to stay positive, don't you? I like that positive mental attitude. You have to, always look forward. Don't obviously, learn from the past, but always look forward. And I really share your optimism. I really do.
Yeah, same.
Well, here's what's hard about comics, and it's hard as a publisher, it's hard as a fan, it's hard as an artist, is all of this creativity brings out our inner child. Okay? We get excited. You read a story that you love, and you love it. And your inner child comes out, right? Yeah. And then the publisher, like, you could yell at me at Boom, you love Something is Killing the Children. I know that there are some print runs in there on the second and third and fourth print. Maybe, I don't know. Nobody yell at me. I could have gotten it wrong. But there are some of those prints in there that are really hard to get.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, your inner child, you're like, I want to get them all. And then you go find out how short print they are. And then you're like, Boom is screwing me. And they get broken, right? And then there's a bunch of people that they get their hearts broken in a series of events, and they become cynical.
Yeah.
Right? And then they're like, yeah, nah. And then I guess they show up on my Instagram going, comics are down. I don't know, whatever. But the thing is if you, as a publisher and as a fan and as an artist, if you don't think that the industry has something for you tomorrow, what are you doing?
Yeah. No,
right?
Yeah, true.
So if you, as a fan, if you go to a comic shop, you're expecting they're going to have something cool. And so that's optimism. And that's your inner child loving creativity. Creativity comes from your inner child. And so you've got to fan that flame. You've got to feed that kid. You've got to, every time you go to a shop, you're feeding your inner child. As a creator, if you don't feed your inner child, you don't create. And as a publisher, I have to get excited about tomorrow, or what's the point in publishing? If the point in publishing is everything sucks and we're all going to die. And by the way, everyone's going to die, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those things are objectively true, but it's like I just think it's a natural to have fun and get excited. And are there going to be disappointments? Of course there's going to be disappointments, but you have a way, you can choose how you look at the world,
And you've always got to give it a try, and always, as long as you've tried your best and you've given it your best shot, do you know what I mean? What happens, isn't it? Because there's always another day, isn't there? So yeah, I like it. Yeah,
thank you. Well, it's like, for me, I don't ever want to be in a situation where I'm going to bed and I'm perfectly fine trying really hard and sucking.
Yeah.
Got no problem with that. Okay. But half-assing it and sucking bothers me. And so, if I had a chance, this is the end of the show and I got to go, but, one of the things we haven't talked about is Keanu Reeves with Berserker yet.
Oh, yeah, I was going to mention that.
Yeah. And the thing is, that Kickstarter that we didn't do it to crowdfund, to get the money to pay for it. We did it as a way to sell the comic digitally, use a digital distribution system to get to people who have never read comics before. And, that's a thing where you sit there and you go, okay, I have a Keanu Reeves comic. I'm really excited about the creative. I really believe in it. It's going to be a huge sales hit in the direct market. But how do you really capitalize on the opportunity to get comics to people who don't read comics? Yeah. And we came up with a solution to use Kickstarter. And all you have to do, everybody knows what Kickstarter is. And all you have to do is click. And the thing is on Kickstarter, you can buy it way before it's going to come out.
Yeah.
And this idea was sell people a trilogy of graphic novels that represent all 12 issues, 3 trades that collect 4 issues each, that do all 12 issues, sell it with one click, and they're going to get shipped 6 months apart. But if you're somebody that loves Keanu Reeves movies and you've never been in a comic shop, and you to set all of that up on Amazon is complicated and hard. I'm not saying it can't be done. It can be done, but Kickstarter, right? So everybody knows Kickstarter, email address, bang, credit card, click, off you go, right? And so that's how that came together. And it's just like, let's get excited about what comics can do. And let's go do great comics. Let's go read great comics. Let's go make great comics. And, it's a good reason to wake up tomorrow.
Absolutely.
I got plenty of reasons not to wake up tomorrow. I'm not going to worry about those.
No.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love it.
So what is the future for Boom Studios in 2021 then? Obviously, you've got Berserker coming out. What else have you got that you could share with us?
Tom, I can't. I'm going to drop a nuclear bomb on you in about 4 to 6 weeks, and I'm being dead serious. So when the announcement comes out, you'll be like, oh, that's what he was talking about.
Yeah.
So we're going to have another big one. And look, here's the thing is we've been having a lot of success for which we're grateful and thankful. And that's good news. The bad news is you do a bunch of big projects, then the market expects more big projects from you.
Of course.
So got to go do more big projects. So we're coming up on the holidays. When we come out of the holidays, we're going to be doing the final orders for Berserker, and that'll launch. And we'll be having a big announcement coming down the pike. that'll blow people's minds. I don't think they'll quite be able to wrap their heads around it, and I'm dead serious. I'm fully expecting shops to order the book wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we're going to be going to second and third print because people can't figure it out. And it's another thing that has huge potential and is one of the biggest things in our world, our universe of nerdy things.
Cool.
And so that'll, I need to shut up because you'll be able to start to figure it out. But it's a huge.
We'll just keep on casting.
Just keep fishing away, chipping away. You've got quite a few kind of TV shows and movies in the pipeline. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're making a show for Disney Plus based on R.L. Stein's book series called Just Beyond.
Yeah,
and we're making a show at Netflix that I can't tell you what it is. So
I tried.
Sorry, Netflix won't let me. They'll send Ninja Assassins. But I got to scoot, guys. This has been a blast.
Thank you ever so much for coming. It's been amazing. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time, Ross. Take care.
It's a lot of fun. And Tom, is not quite mint. Did you not pick out the right issue? Could it have been mint? But it wasn't.
Yeah, it could have been mint. I mean, we tussled so much with the name of the show.
I'm just being ridiculous. Thank you again, gentlemen. I really appreciate it.
And that is it, guys. That is our final episode of Let's Talk Comics with Ross Richie. It's been an absolute pleasure to have Ross on the show. He was a delight to chat to, and we could have spent hours and hours and hours speaking to Ross. So, Ross, if you are watching this, thank you very, 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 very much for joining us. Guys, if you're not subscribed to Ross's channel on YouTube and don't follow him on Instagram, make sure you go over there and do those things because he is very active. He is also a really nice guy, and he does try to talk to everybody. So make sure you head over there and do that. Make sure you subscribe here. Hit the dingly bell so you don't miss any of our content because we've got some more Let's Talk Comics with some other special guests coming up this year. And also, we've got unboxings, we've got our key show, and we've got some general bits and bobs we're going to do. We've also got our bi-weekly haul videos where we get some guests on and we chat bits and bobs. Anyway, guys, stay safe, stay sexy. See you.